Hi everyone, my name is Keela Villa and I'm the librarian at American Indian College. This interview is part of a series entitled Share Your Story. And Share Your Story is a way to capture and preserve the unique stories of AIC alumni and employees. Today's November 1st, 2024, and I am going to be interviewing Dr. David and Cheri Moore. Thank you all for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Keith.
So we're going to start off by talking about what initially brought you both to AIC. And was it related to any experience that you had beforehand in the field? Maybe it was Native American ministry, the Assemblies of God. What was it that kind of brought you here in the first place?
Well, I served here as a missionary intern from Evangel College in the summer of 1969. I had no idea I would ever come back, but I will say this campus right here had not been built yet. But one of my tasks, because the property had been purchased, was to dig the hole on this campus for the electricity pole.
Wow.
To begin construction. And I did that in July of 1969 when the temperature, you know how it is then, around
Yes.
115 degrees. And I wasn't from this part of the country. But that was one of my tasks. But I never thought I would come back.
Yeah.
Anyway, went back to college. I had met Cheri and we got married, went into ministry in Michigan for a year. But I always wanted to come back to Arizona because while I was here, I'd visited a lot of the American Indian reservations. And I'd majored in anthropology when I was in college, so I developed a kind of an understanding of cultural differences.
Yeah.
So to make a long story short, Cheri and I left where we were in Michigan and came to the White Mountain Apache Reservation in Arizona in 1974. We spent a little over a year there. One of the things I wanted to do was to help the Apache Indians understand the importance of indigenous church development and having the native people be able to take leadership, ownership, and eventually pastoralship of their congregations. I don't think the missionaries were ready for that. I was just kind of a young smart aleck, and they didn't want that. So I remembered Don Ramsey, who was the president of the college here at American Indian College at that time, and I talked to him about coming down to American Indian College. He was glad for me to do that. So that's kind of our background in coming into American Indian College. We came here during the formative early parts of our ministry.
Got it.
You want to add
anything you want to add?
Well, I just wanted to say we received our home missions appointment before we went to the White Mountain Apache area community of Cedar Creek, and so we had to what they call itinerate or raise our support for several months before we went there.
Got it. And that actually leads me to a spin-off question. Did you all help develop the Cedar Creek Assemblies of God Church while you were there, or did you work with that church at all?
Oh, yes.
That church
That's
was
where
already
we were.
developed. It was one of the early ones. I don't want to go into all the history of that, but Alta Washburn, who founded American Indian College, had been a missionary on a bordering reservation, the San Carlos Apache Reservation, and it was through people she worked with and others that came later that the church in Cedar Creek had become developed. So it was a developed congregation when we arrived there, but what struck me is that there was no Native American ownership or pastoralship anywhere on that reservation. But it was a good, strong congregation.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing that with everybody. So our next question, can you both give us a timeline and a description of the jobs that you all held? Because I know both of you worked here. What did you do? How did you start? And where did you end up?
Let me say this, and I'll turn it to Cheri, because she did fill some important positions here, but we also had 3 children while we were working here. So she spent a lot of time at home involved in the important task of raising our 3 children. But I'll let her tell you some of the things she did do here at the college.
Okay. Well, when we first came, our daughter was just 9 months old when we moved here from Cedar Creek, and I've helped somewhat in the office, part-time work in the office with Brother Ramsey, and helped out there when I could. And then I also played the piano for the choir.
That's cool.
A few years later, I was the accompanist for the choir that did travel somewhat and perform in different churches.
Yeah.
And then the last job I held was when we came back in 2013, and I became the receptionist in the office.
Then let me just clarify that a minute, but let me first say that whether she had an official position or not, for all the time that I served here, she was always involved and always coming over to the school and praying with and meeting with students and being involved in the life of the school. But just to clarify something she said, we were here from 1974 to 1994, 20 years, and 8 years of that time I served as president. From try to make sure I get this correct because she's over here making sure I got it down right. But I served as president from 1987 through 1994.
Okay.
And then we left to go to Springfield, Missouri to serve in the Assemblies of God National Office. We came back in 2013 and served as president until we retired in 2021. And all of our kids were raised by then, so Cheri served as the school receptionist. And by the way, she did that for no pay. She was a volunteer that entire time. But we needed her
But
help.
I love being here. I love being more involved with the students and being able to, get to know them in a more personal way and visit with them when they'd come into the office.
That's so important and
I
so special. So
really
glad that you got to have that
enjoyed that part. Yeah, it was special.
So in addition to being president, what else did you do?
Well, when I first came, I was asked to start a physical education program. At that time, there were only about 30, 35 students, and also to teach a couple Bible classes, which I did. And then from there, I was involved in the student employment program. The school used to provide, not provide the jobs, but work on getting jobs for students. Many of them were janitors at local elementary schools or did house cleaning for homes in the area. And so someone had to manage that process and make sure they had transportation to and from their workplace and so on. So I did that for a while. Then when Carl College became president, I served as business administrator of the college. And set up the school with a standard higher education accounting system. Then later he asked me to serve as academic dean. And so I was academic dean when I was asked to become president.
Got it.
That was in 1987.
So you just kept moving on up.
Yeah, I guess.
Education to president.
Yeah.
Wow.
I coached the basketball team
Coached
too.
the basketball team.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Wow, maybe I can find some photos of that.
Yeah, I'm sure they're in there.
Well, going back to your discussion on being a president here, what were some of the major highlights or challenges from each of those terms that you served?
Well, to be honest with you, the first time I was here as serving as president from 87 to 94, the school was a candidate status for accreditation when I became president. The school became fully accredited after I became president. After I became president, I sent a long-range plan, master plan to the board of directors, and there are several things in that, but one of them was to start an elementary education program because it had become known to me that if we could get students from here teaching school on reservations, they could make some money, help support ministry. Many of them, their spouses or they themselves could become pastors of Indian churches, and that's actually what has happened. So that was, and I would say that two of the people during that time that were great inspirations to me were Alma Thomas and Betty Hanna, who came to the school with advanced degrees in education and having taught on the reservation. So they kind of started our elementary education program as a result of that.
Okay.
The biggest challenge, I suppose, money's always a challenge. Raising funds for the school. Accreditation is always a challenge, maintaining, the proper certification, all that you have to do to maintain accreditation. But to be honest with you, that first tenure as president was not stressful. I mean, I had the support of the board, of the faculty. We had a great student body. We had chapel every morning at 8 o'clock. And
Wow, that's different
And well
than now.
attended.
and I'm telling you, half the students were there early to pray.
Yeah.
And
It
I,
was
and in
wonderful.
fact, that's one of the things I enjoyed most was coming and praying with students around the altars. But yeah, I don't think you have chapel quite that time in
It's
the
at
morning
11
anymore.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
But it really was a fun time.
Yeah.
It wasn't stressful. There weren't a lot of challenges. I mean, we built the gymnasium during that time. We built the student union. We built the Lee Academic Center at that time. I guess those are the three. Did we build anything else? I can't remember.
That was,
Those are
yeah,
the three
those
major
three
projects.
main ones.
And yeah, there were challenges in raising funds for those, but ultimately we built them basically almost debt-free.
That's wonderful.
I think when I left, we owed less than $100,000
Wow.
on everything.
Yeah, praise God for that.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and there were some great miracles, and I could go into those, but there were some real miracles that took place. In fact, I will tell you one.
Oh, I look forward to it, yeah.
Okay.
All right. One day, well, the board had told me when we were building the Charles Lee Activity Center, I had got all these construction crews together and everything, and we were moving along and paying for everything, and then we started to run out of money. And so I went to the board and said, hey, we're going to have to borrow some money. But I knew they'd say yes because school was in good financial shape. And they said no. They said, first, we want you to come up with $100,000, and then we'll think about the idea of borrowing. So I thought, oh my word, I've done everything I can and raised as much as I can, sent out all the letters and everything. So I was really concerned. So we're driving into campus together. That day she was with me. And I'll never forget, I won't tell you where it was, but I stopped at a stoplight and I turned to her and I said, Cheri, I'm going to call somebody and one person is going to give us $100,000.
That's a lot of faith
I
right
said,
there.
really? Are you kidding?
She said, "Are you-" So I get here, and before I walk into my office, I say to my administrative assistant, hey, we need this money to keep the school, keep this building project going. I'm going to go into my office. So I'm going to go through the Rolodex. At that time, we didn't have cell phones or computers with Rolodex. I don't know if you know what that is,
I
Keela.
do, yeah.
Okay. I said, I'm going to.
Antique store now.
You're right. I said, I'm going to go through there, find somebody, and they're going to give us $100,000. Well, that's crazy. So I go into my office, I go through the Rolodex, look at names, and I think, oh my, this is a dumb idea. I have no idea who or if anyone has that capability. So the phone rings. And it's my administrative assistant. Somebody wants to talk to you about the progress of the building. And I just said, just tell them I'll get back with them later, because I assumed it was somebody in the building process, and I didn't want to have to tell them that we'd probably have to delay their coming or whatever. Anyway, she said, okay. And then she buzzed me back, and she said, no, he really wants to talk to you. I said, okay. So this guy's on the phone, and he said, you know what, you got this building project going, I know you're planning to name it after Charlie Lee and all this stuff. And I said, yeah. Well, what do you need? I said, and this guy wasn't in the Rolodex, by the way. I didn't know him. I had never heard of him.
Yeah.
I said, I need somebody to give us $100,000. So he goes, okay, let me talk to my wife, and I'll call you back. I said, okay. So in less than 10 minutes, he calls back. And his exact words, I'll never forget them. I want you to know that I've written the check and it'll be in the mail today.
Wow.
A miracle.
That is a
yeah,
miracle.
I
just
said,
a
you've
miracle.
got to be
Just
kidding me.
Amazing.
I didn't have to,
Amazing.
I told her I didn't have to call anybody. All I had to do was pick up the receiver.
God
Somebody
knew.
called me.
Yes.
And so we got that going and raised more money
Incredible.
anyway. We essentially finished the building, almost debt-free.
That's a miracle for sure. And I think your faith really helped to catapult that into existence.
And there were other miracles, but this is I don't want to draw this interview out into the wee hours of the morning, so I'll stop
we can
there.
move on to our next question then. So what was something, Dr. Moore, that you did here that you feel like had a really long-term positive impact? I'm sure building those buildings was a huge one. Is there anything else that stands out to you?
I think, to be honest with you, the thing I remember the most and that I feel the most fulfillment from is just my interaction with students. And if I had any personal relationships with them and left any impact on their life, I think it was important. I remember one graduate told me, he said, you know what I thought the most about you, Brother Moore? And I said, no, what impressed you the most? And I was waiting for him to tell me some great sermon I'd preached in chapel or some, brilliant thing I'd done. And he said, I used to see you walking across campus picking up trash cans and things and putting them into the trash can. Yeah. And I said, how in the world did this impress you? And he said, it just let me know the importance of being a servant. And I didn't think anything about it. I just wanted the campus to look nice and whatever as best I could. So that, I don't know if I had an impact on his ministry just by picking up trash cans, so be it. Of course, getting initial accreditation, that was something I thought was important. Probably the most important contribution, though, was coming back when the board asked me to when the school was in trouble. And in fact, there was question whether the school could stay alive, and keeping the school going, and then partnering with President Bridges, Southwestern Assemblies of God University, now Nelson University, and being able to find a way that in the face of lots of not problems we had so much, but in the face of a lot of adversity, I was able to keep the school going. And I think that was maybe a lesson.
During COVID, it was very difficult.
And the funny thing is, when COVID, enrollment increased every year after I came back, but COVID hit in, January 2020? The fall 21 semester, we had more students than the dormitories could hold, and we had to put some of them in hotel rooms. So when our enrollment continued to increase even during COVID. But I don't take credit for that. For all the enrollment increase and everything. I just happened to be here and be able to provide the best thing I ever did was hire a great librarian.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much. And it's funny because I came in August 2020 during COVID when we had some of those record high numbers, and so I got to see that, and the 6 feet apart and wearing masks, so that was an interesting time. But thanks for talking about all that. So for both of you, did you personally meet or know any of the early or founding members? I know you mentioned Betty Hanna, Alta Washburn, Alma Thomas, and if so, could you tell us a little bit about them or your interactions with them?
Well, I knew Alta Washburn personally.
He got to know her.
Yeah, I got to know her that summer I came here as a missionary intern. And while we were on the Apache reservation, I had interacted with her a few times. And after I came to the college, I talked to her a few times, and I had told her, I said, look, I know you had a vision for this school. You wanted to see Native Americans be able to go to their home reservations and places and pastor. And I know that's been a struggle because the difficulties involved in replacing missionaries and the structure and all that. And I said, I really want to see that vision fulfilled. And so I would remind her that from time to time. And in fact, we invited her here in 1992 when I was president at that time, and had her speak in chapel. Then we brought her over here to the building that was dormitory and library and everything. And we dedicated this building to her, and the plaque out front's got her name on it. So I think that was kind of cool. I knew Alma Thomas and Betty Hanna well, and others that I could go through, but can you think of any?
They made a huge impact, and just Brother Ramsey and Eugene Hunter was a faculty member for many years here.
Yeah, I didn't mean to leave those out. I was trying to
there's so many
founders.
Yeah.
But Don Ramsey, he was the guy who came in after Alta Washburn and really kept this school alive and brought it to this property where it is now. And I'd worked with him as an intern. And hadn't been for him, I don't know what would have happened to the school, because he provided the leadership that it needed at the time to keep the school going. So I worked with him. I think I was here for 3 years. and before he left as
Under him.
president. Yeah.
Got it. That's so cool. And actually, speaking of Don Ramsey, I have a photo of him in his office looking at this painting right here. So maybe we'll be able to zoom in on that. And so this is supposed to be a painting of what the future campus, what they thought it would look like. It was kind of that vision.
Well, that's
And
great.
so, yeah, so
Well,
we've got pieces of history like that here. That's just so cool.
Yeah, he did have that vision and understanding that what he wanted it to look like in the future.
Yeah.
It took on a little different appearance, but the essence of it is still there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So moving on from the founding members, who are some memorable coworkers or students from your time here? Maybe just some names that stand out to you.
Number one, I don't think we want to mention the name of any student because there are so many.
Yeah.
And somebody's going to be left out.
And
And we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
there are so many
there are
that
so
we really
many,
and
once-
appreciate it.
of them.
Well, and so many have impacted us.
Yes.
But once we start, someone's going to say, well, if they watch this, they're going to say, well, what about me?
Yeah,
So
why
I'd
didn't
rather
you?
not
Why didn't you?
go down that route. But as far as people we worked with, that could also be the case.
Yeah.
But
But I mentioned Betty Hanna and Alma Thomas. One other one would be Jim and Belinda Lopez. Jim was a graduate of this school, and Jim later served as president of this college. We were close to their age, Jim and Belinda. Our children were close to the ages of their children, so we had a lot of fellowship with them. And we get together with them all the time now even. But Jim and I had really similar ideas and passions and thoughts about the school and what the school. We'd talk together a lot, just the two of us, and share, what our thinking was about the school. Now I mentioned Carl Collins was president before I was. Now Sherry and I
he
also
and his wife.
socialized a lot with he and his wife,
Yeah,
Alice.
Alice Collins was
they
a
were-
good friend.
We were good friends with them. But the ones that have the most enduring friendship and relationship with are the Lopez's. So many other names come to my mind, but we could just run out of, and somebody would, oh no, I didn't mention them. What's wrong with me?
Yes, and that's actually a great segue because the online archive, if you're watching and you're interested, we have all of the yearbooks digitized. So if there's a person who you remember from your time here and you want to find their picture, we have that available. And so we can link that right here for you to check out. So on to our next question. What are some things from your time at AIC that you've noticed have stayed the same over the years, and what are some things that have changed?
Go ahead,
I don't
Sherry.
know.
I've been talking a lot.
I don't know. Well, the degree programs, I believe, are the same as when we were here a few years ago. And elementary ed and Bible and business.
Yeah, we actually recently just added criminal justice. Yeah, so that started this semester. Really exciting.
Great. Okay,
that's
good.
good.
That's awesome.
And,
Well, really the thing that hasn't changed is the mission of the school.
yes.
Since Alta Washburn founded the
important.
school, the mission of the school is to prepare Native American students for ministry, and that hasn't changed. Another thing that hasn't changed, there have always been some non-Native students who have attended here, who have felt an identity with the mission of the school and other aspects of the school. So that hasn't changed. What has changed, I mean, anybody who has been around any length of time knows that educational systems and processes and young people today are so different than they were 20, 30 years ago. And so as a result of that, extracurricular and other types of programs always change. And studying methods, I mean, there were no computers or iPhones or any of that stuff. The first time I was president, when I first came here, that's all changed. But I think the identity of the school, for the most part, and the mission of the school, which I appreciate, remains the same.
Awesome. Thanks for walking us through that. So what was it like to work together and pray together and really help build this school together?
Go ahead.
Well, we both have a compassion and love for Native Americans. And he had, of course, studied anthropology, and he was much more familiar with them. And when I came to Cedar Creek back in '74, that was my first time to be around any Native Americans. And so it was, you know, kind of a little bit of a culture shock, but I felt accepted by them, and we, of course, grew to love those people. Yeah. And it was really interesting when we found out we were going to have a baby, and we announced it. They're very loving or wanting, interested in babies in the church, and they would pass them around the whole church during the service. But it seemed like it was even more of an acceptance by them when we announced we were going to have a baby. Yeah. And they got so excited and just seemed to help us connect with them in an even more special way. And of course, when our daughter was born in November of that year, they just loved her so much and had a wonderful baby shower for us. And so that's my experience. But as then coming here and being exposed to more tribes, or, you know, Navajo besides the Apache and so many other different tribes, it really just opened my heart up more to Native Americans.
What was your question?
So it was, what was it like to work together here at the school, or do ministry together, kind of your experiences working with each other with all of those things?
Well, let me pick up on that point, because what it was like to work together is that we, everything related to the college that wasn't in a formal sense, like basketball games. We used to have all school picnics.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, things like that. We always went there, and we always brought our children.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't just the two of us, but our kids kind of grew up and identified with this environment. Our two boys played basketball, and they would always pretend they were some name of the basketball player.
They would pick it.
So cool.
They would pick a name and pretend they were that person when they would play. So it was our life, and we were together in everything.
Yeah.
All right, so what was your favorite memory of your time at AIC?
Go ahead, Cheri.
Oh my goodness. Well, I was so excited when he got the call to ask him if he would be willing to come back to be the president a second time here at the college in 2013. And it just overwhelmed me that we would have another opportunity to be here. And it just was a wonderful feeling coming back and being with the students and the faculty at that time. And I was so thankful that I could be more involved, you know, with the college by being here on a daily basis. And so that's what meant the most to me about it.
Wonderful. What about you?
Wow.
There's so many, right?
Let me take you back to the first memory that was significant to me when I became the president. Okay, they had a search committee, and they had the search committee interviewed me and somebody else about serving as president. And then I didn't know who they were going to pick. They'd voted and everything, so I was sitting in my dean's office, and I got a notification to go down to the board meeting. They were meeting down below in a room on our campus, and I went down there, and I didn't know if they were going to say, you know, we really appreciate you turning in your application and being willing to meet with us, but we're sorry. And to be honest with you, I probably would have been disappointed, but I didn't know if they were going to do that or just, you know, say, okay, you got it. So the chairman of the board said, "It gives me this first I knew it. He said, "It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you the next president of American Indian College."
Wow.
And then they stood and clapped, and I thought, okay, I guess I got it. And you know what went through my mind? I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Candidate, Robert Redford in it.
Oh.
But anyway, it's a great movie. And Robert Redford is running for Senate in California. And of course, they do all the things you have to do to get him elected and everything. And he's got a campaign manager that tells him to do this and that and the other. And so he's been processing through all that. And so they said, okay, you've been elected. And he says, last line of the movie, "Now what do I do?"
Now what do I do?
So that went through my mind. Fortunately, I didn't say that. But,
how funny.
but anyway, I think that memory, that as well as just the knowledge that I was going to have to adjust. I had never led anything in my life before. I had always been in a subservient position.
Yeah.
So knowing that, and there were probably 35 to 40 faculty and staff here. So all of a sudden I had people with doctorates on my faculty. I had state regulators because we were a candidate for accreditation. I had accrediting people, all with intimidating clipboards and everything, walking around. And I thought, wow, this is a lot. I'm going to have to.
Yeah.
So that's my most potent memory.
Got it. Well, I'm glad that God called both of you here for the times that you were here, and I know that you both had a really big impact on the students and employees here. So my final question is, what would you say to current or future students, if you could say anything?
Mm-hmm.
That they would feel at home here, they would find lasting friendships, and they would get more of a personal encounter with their professors, that because the classes are smaller, it would be a better experience for them to interact with their teacher if they needed to ask questions. Yeah. And they would just have a more personal experience here. They're not just a number, but they're a person that the faculty and staff really care about.
Yeah, I think what I would say is what I frequently said in chapel. And whenever I would say this, the students had heard it so much that they would finish the second part of what I said out loud to me. There are two important events in life. The first is the day you were born, and the second is the day you discover why you were born. And you're here to discover why you were born. In that process, you're going to have adjustments, you're going to have difficulties and everything. But once you discover why you were born, then life will be so much more meaningful to you, and God can use you. And that's why, regardless what you're majoring in as a student, your whole focus in life has to be discovering why you were born.
Amen. Well, thank you both for being here today, for sharing your story with us. I really appreciate it. And if you would like to share your story with the AIC alumni, employees, and just the general public, you can contact me at aiclibrary@nelson.edu. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Blessing after blessing, my life has just been so sweet. If you're not happy, got a friend I want you to meet. Oh, blessing after blessing, keep on following me.
We don't deserve it, but that's just the way it's been.